HBO Max, through its parent company, Warner Brothers Discovery, is suing South Park, Paramount, and MTV for $500 million for breaching its contract, for failing to comply with the agreements of their $500 million 2019 deal that they entered into, whereby South Park promised to deliver to HBO Max 30 new episodes from season 24, 25, and 26. The facts of the case are this. In 2019, when its exclusive licensing deal with Hulu, which is owned by Disney, was ending, South Park, and a joint venture with Paramount, put out the call that it was opening up its exclusive streaming rights to the world, and anybody and everybody could bid for it. HBO Max wanted these rights because it wanted a show that could create a stable subscriber base, bringing subscribers back every week, and South Park was that solution. South Park has been around for over 20 years. It is crazy that it is still so popular. I can understand why I watched it when I was growing up, and I love the show. It is very clever. And so HBO entered the bidding war and tried to negotiate with South Park, wanting to pay more for the new episodes, because that's really where the value is. The old episodes you can get in many different places. South Park usually premieres on Comedy Central, which is owned by MTV, which is owned by Paramount. And then after that, it goes to an exclusive streamer like Hulu in the past, and now to HBO Max. And they agreed on a price of over $1.6 million per episode. So it was over 300 episodes for the old and the new. That's how you got to the price tag of over $500 million. So in October of 2019, they entered into a term sheet with these terms. Now, the parties contemplated entering into a long-form agreement, and this happens a lot in Hollywood. I've been an attorney in Hollywood for 15 years, and we will sometimes have a term sheet, and it will then turn into a long form. But I'm actually kind of shocked that there isn't a long form here, considering that the price tag of this deal is over $500 million. This contract contemplated two types of content. Type A content, which was about 22 minutes, and it's the typical episode, and Type B content, which is basically anything longer than that. South Park promised HBO 30 episodes, 10 from each season, 24, 25, and 26. Time goes on, and they keep on not delivering anything to HBO, even though HBO chases South Park, and they keep telling them it's coming, it's coming. Fast forward to January of 2021, Paramount announced its own streaming service, Paramount Plus, and in its press releases, it states that it was going to make South Park core part of its strategy to grow Paramount Plus. And in furtherance of that statement, in August of 2021, Paramount entered into a deal with the creators of South Park, Parker and Stone, for a deal of $900 million. So let's just realize that in the last few years, Parker and Stone have made over $1.4 billion for their South Park IP. And as we will see in a minute, they entered into a kind of trickery of bait and switch. Going off of just the complaint from HBO and Warner Discovery, it sounds like what ended up happening was new content for South Park was being created. So instead of calling it episodes, they called them events and ended up giving them the content that should have gone to HBO went to Paramount instead. As of 2021, no episodes had been delivered to HBO. As of today, only 14 pieces of content have been delivered to HBO, clearly in breach of the 30 pieces of content that they were supposed to have delivered to HBO. Paramount's defense is, while these are events and they do not fall under type of content that was contemplated in the 2019 agreement. Now, unfortunately, the agreement's not attached here, so I can't look at it, and I would love to, because it's basically a licensing agreement, and I have negotiated many of those, and I would love to have seen what the carve-outs are, because they could have very well said, well, we could maybe sell these different types of content to someone else. But I don't think that's the case here. I think they agreed with HBO Max for, in exchange for $500 million, we are going to give you an exclusive streaming deal where you get all of our content. But in reality, they also made another deal with Paramount for $900 million for the same content. Imagine you are a company and you want to give your executives very unique, desirable, hard to attain cars. So you go to Aston Martin and you say, for the next 3 years, I'm going to buy cars from you and you can only make them for my company. And Aston Martin says, fine, that's great. It'll be $500 million. And then you expect these exclusive cars for your employees, and you only start seeing these exact cars that you're expecting going to this other company, and they just happen to call them DB9s, but they're the exact same thing, right? They're the exact car that you were expecting. This is a case of double dipping.
double dipped? What are you talking about?
I don't know how else to characterize it. I'm interested to see Paramount's response and their defense. It very well could go to settlement. I mean, a lot of times we don't see the answers. I'm actually surprised. I used to work at Disney, and 10 years ago, when Netflix was just a twinkle in everyone's eye, Disney actually said that it would never have a streaming business. And here we are 10 years later with two studios having a streaming war over some pieces of content, by the way, which are also called streaming wars. But those episodes are actually about river and water rights. But I think it's ironic that we're now having a streaming war over some episodes called streaming wars. If you have found this video to be entertaining and of value, and maybe you learned something, please consider subscribing because it really helps my new channel and informs the algorithm. South Park has been making content for Paramount, and the content should have gone to HBO. On the face of this complaint, HBO is claiming that this is trickery and wordplay, and I might tend to agree with them. Now, I'm very surprised because I have dealt with Paramount many times over the years, especially when I was working at Skydance, and I know the GC of Paramount, and she is really, really top notch. So I am curious what has happened that would bring us to a lawsuit, because usually when things go wrong, attorneys will pick up the phone and call each other and say, hey, what's going on here? Why are you giving content that was supposed to exclusively come to us to another company? It's interesting that this is where we are. Basically, what happened was the two pieces of content that was made, the first one was called the Pandemic Special, which aired on September 30th, 2020. And then the second one was called South Park with a Q Vaccination Special, which aired on Comedy Central on March 10th, 2021. These two pieces of content ended up being approximately 50 minutes in length. And so the parties agreed to a licensing fee of over $3.3 million. So it sounds like from what I see here, again, we haven't seen Paramount's response, is they made HBO pay an additional $3.3 million on top of their $500 million licensing deal to get these two pieces of content. And because of the pandemic, at first, South Park said it wasn't going to create season 24, and that's why it created these two pieces of content. And I think as of right now, they have received 14 pieces of content from South Park. After they completed their deal for the $900 million Paramount deal, Stone says, we have FU money now, which has been quoted in the complaint. From the face of this complaint, it doesn't sound that great for South Park or Paramount because there's clearly been a breach here. They promised 30 episodes, 14 have been delivered. Unless facts come out, and trials are always very fact specific. Until the facts come out from Paramount, we won't know what happened here. All we know is a whole bunch of new content was created that didn't go to HBO, but ended up going to Paramount, and they were called the post-COVID content. So since announcing its massive deal with Paramount in August of 2021, South Park has provided Paramount Plus with 4 supersized South Park episodes of the same format and similar length as the 2 supersized pandemic specials that it provided to Warner HBO as the entirety of season 24. It only provided 2 pieces of content that was supposed to take the place of 10 episodes for season 24. It provided to Paramount Plus the post-COVID content, South Park, The Streaming Wars Part 1, South Park, The Streaming Wars Part 2, clearly in violation of the 2019 agreement. In addition, South Park is scheduled to provide an additional 10 supersized South Park episodes to Paramount Plus over the next 5 years, including at least 4 during the term of the 2019 agreement. So I'm interested in seeing what Paramount's response is going to be, because from the face of this complaint, it sounds like Warner HBO has a pretty solid case for breach of contract and proving that South Park was double dipping from both sides and providing the content that should have gone to HBO to Paramount. I'm surprised that 2 studios are suing each other and it's actually gone to litigation, because most of the time these disputes are settled out of court. The lawyers talk to each other and we tend to resolve it.